Today we have a special video as we're flying from Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport on the southern east side of Florida to Saint Petersburg Airport on the west side of Florida, right below Tampa. On this flight, I have a special guest from Barbados who's here training so that he could take his experience and build out a pretty interesting company, and we're going to talk about that right here on the channel. Flight Forward is a nonprofit organization that was developed to raise awareness amongst minorities and women so that they can pursue careers in aviation. We like to try to monetize and help people find their way to becoming commercial pilots because it is expensive. So this channel is about raising awareness, introducing all people to aviation, and talking about really interesting things that really isn't covered out there on the internet. So come take a flight and learn how flying cargo in the Caribbean is about to change.
Dancing to full power. Yep. Airspeed alive. Yep. 260. Yep. Rotate. Rotate. So right now we're just west of the southern end of Lake Okeechobee, which is the big lake that's in southern Florida. So, you know, Jeremy here is a pilot in Barbados. And island flying is a whole lot different than stateside flying, for sure. And I would imagine some of the regulations are different. The number of airports nearby and services are different. And just the general aviation community must be relatively small, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But what sort of differences have you noticed your training here in the States from flying back home?
Well, you guys focus a lot on airspaces, different classes of airspaces. We have those classes as well, but they're altitude dependent, and they don't necessarily coincide with one another as well. So you wouldn't have a case where you're leaving a class B and going into a class E. That doesn't happen too often. Most of those airports down there are either class B or E, to be honest.
It's either class B or E.
B Delta, class Delta or Echo.
Class Bravo or Delta. Gotcha.
No, Delta or Echo.
It's only Delta and Echo, no Bravos.
No, there's some Bravos as well, but that's altitude dependent. Depends on how high you go.
Gotcha. It's only IFR flying.
Correct. Basically,
Gotcha.
So class Alpha, definitely like here, purely IFR flying, and very much high altitude, just like here as well. Well, the next thing you have to consider, you're flying over water most times. Islands are very small. Barbados, where I'm from, is 166 square miles. So pretty much you can do, in a 172, you can travel around the island in 36 minutes. So
Around the entire.
yeah, literally 36 minutes and you're done. And that's at 75% power. So to get your kicks, fly across to another country. So basically it's international flying. You have to declare your intentions as soon as you enter the airspace. You have to get clearances and all of that stuff. Pretty much like what you did here, moving from airspace into airspace. But I think it's a bit more restrictive where I'm from too. Because you have to do like planning way in advance, sometimes 2 to 3 hours before, and you have to file it the way that ICAO, the national body regulating aviation in the world, recommends that you do it.
Gotcha.
I get the sense here that it's a little more fluid.
Yeah, no, it's for sure more fluid. Like one of my flight instructors from Argentina said that the same thing, that you have to fly, you have to file in advance, and he's like, the aviation, general aviation is like non-existent in Argentina.
Oh no, we have it. It's healthy. You have to be rich to really take part in it, but then, you know, there's a means for you to knock out a few hours every weekend. So, you know, just on pure population size alone per country, it's much smaller than what you would get normally in the United States, but it reminds me of Florida. So Florida, believe it or not, in terms of the, well, you have more people.
But more aviators.
Yeah, more aviators. Yeah, but per capita, we have a healthy set of aviators back home as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What do you think the percentage is?
of the total population.
Yeah.
I reckon about 5 to 10, 5%.
5%?
If so much.
I think that's above average. I think the international average is 3% of people are pilots.
Yeah.
I think. Don't quote me on that. If anybody knows, let me know in the comment section below. Like what percentage of human beings are aviators?
Yeah, I mean, 5 for me is an optimistic thing. It could be much less than that, but I do know that every year you have a steady set of ground schoolers across each island. So 5 is a bare maximum. 5% of our population is just around 2,000 people. Right, 20,000 would be, or just about 20,000 would be 10%. So 2,000 people, yeah, I can see that being like general aviators in Barbados. I did hear that the club I belong to has just hundreds of members. So, it could be less, of course.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh. And how much is fuel? I'm sure it's freaking expensive because you have to import all your fuel anyway.
Actually, I think, yes. Not really. Alright, so Trinidad and Tobago, right,
Gotcha.
is an oil nation and a natural gas nation. So I'm not sure where we get our 100 LL from. I do know we get our jet fuel some from Trinidad, but a great part of it from elsewhere. I think from here, actually, I think we get our jet fuel. But as it stands, the 100 LL, which I obviously use because I only really fly things like this, it's around $6 per gallon. So just a little bit more than the national average is right now, because I think you guys are like 5.
I'm paying 7.
You're paying 7 right now in Fort Lauderdale. I saw the average as being around 5. It was around 6. Recently I saw ours at 6. Fuel prices really fell down there.
Oh yeah, with the whole world.
Yeah,
cool. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad, but you need to ask me what I pay at the pump for my car.
What's
It's about double that, man.
really?
Bullshit, you not.
So they completely discourage driving? Is that what it is?
No, that's not what it is, man. It's okay. So Barbados is a tourism-related country. It's very much driven on tourism as a major earner of foreign exchange. It's not necessarily by itself the largest industry. Anything that deals with consumerism, so distribution and whatnot, those are large. But tourism is how we earn our foreign exchange. So, in order to encourage tourism, you need to make it cheaper for aircraft to fly there. So on top of general subsidies that the government gives to the aircraft, they make fuel competitive. And that, trickles down to us, guys in the general aviation community.
Yeah.
However, we also have a very high tax regime. Outside of income taxes, our income taxes are like, on companies, I think the highest one is like 5%, or it could be slightly lower than that now. It's supposed to be lowered every few years. But that's another thing we can talk about on another channel another time.
Yeah.
But the point being is how the government makes its money on taxation. A lot of it is through fuel and imports.
Okay.
So with me, when I'm paying at the pump, I'm paying my road tax. I'm paying a huge premium or huge tax on the importation of that oil, and it helps the government to do things like right here, like road works. But also we have a very great social welfare program.
Gotcha.
Poverty, as people typically know it, does not really exist in Barbados. It's a little different because you can be living in I wouldn't call it, we don't call them shanty towns, but just let's call it low cost housing. And pretty much your children can afford to go to school up to university, believe it or not.
Through university?
Yeah, through university. I never paid a cent for my education, and I have a master's degree. Never paid a cent.
What about for aviation education?
Oh, no.
It's not included?
No, it's not. I had to pull from my pocket, man.
Gotcha.
But generally, for everything else, my background is in economics and finance. Everything straight through. I, however, was educated at the master's level in England. I went to Imperial College London, and I got that on a British Commonwealth scholarship. So pretty much up to my undergraduate, I never had to pay a cent for my education.
Now, a question I'm curious about, right? Like, pilots always talk about flight over water and aircraft, right? So I would imagine a lot of the airports are small. A lot of single-engine aircraft just for kind of scuttling around. What sort of trips have you taken in single-engine over water?
Oh, geez. I've done Barbados, St. Vincent a few times. That's like 110 nautical miles. I've done a load of Barbados to St. Lucia and back. So that's like 105 thereabouts nautical miles one way. So 210 nautical mile trip. And my favorite trip of all time was a day that I did some stuff with my instructor. We flew from Barbados to St. Vincent to Antigua, Antigua back to Barbados, all over water. Never passed over land in between any points, with the exception of between St. Vincent and Antigua, we flew directly over Guadeloupe. So pretty much at 9,500 feet on average when we were heading north from St. Vincent to Antigua. Total of that trip was definitely, because we had to refuel, probably close to 800, 900 nautical miles.
Gotcha.
Yeah, or a little more than that, actually. Over water, predominantly over water. And you're not phased. I mean, you do a few of those trips, you begin to trust your engine, you hope that your engineers are on their game.
Yeah.
You know, and the guys, I mean, you don't get crashes in the Caribbean that often. If you check the accident records, they're very, very, especially with general aviation, very, they're not frequent at all.
Exactly. Most crashes are here and around airports,
Yeah.
right? Low and slow situations. So it's like, you know, everybody, the way I look at it, everybody's going to die at some point. Nobody wants to die early.
Right.
But the probability of you having an in and out over that open water run,
Right.
the few hours that you're flying, is unlikely.
It's fairly low.
Yeah, and then if you try to kind of plan for safety in those situations, raft, life vest,
Yep.
you know, flares, any survival equipment,
Yep.
then, you know, maybe you survive. I've seen there was like a series that I saw go down off the coast of Hawaii or something like that, rescued by like a cruise ship.
Okay.
You know, people do go down over water, people go down over land, but like if you're fearful of what if my engine craps out or whatever, you should be fearful of that happening the places that you're most frequently flying, which is near the airport, your little $100 hamburger runs.
Yep.
You know, I really want people who are watching this channel not only to be interested in general aviation, but really using their flight or their flight experience and their ability to fly to take some really cool trips, right? Those are experiences that anybody who takes those trips with you, including yourself, will never forget.
Agreed. It's amazing, man, but I don't get the American fear of water. I really don't. I mean, all right, think of it this way, right? I'll give you this story really quick. So how I got into aviation, right? Well, I grew up next to the airport my entire life, like literally walking distance away from our international airport, right? But could not give two hoots about an airplane. I only used them to travel until an eventful day where I was trapped in Dominica just before a Category 5 hurricane. And the Eastern Caribbean, one of our carriers abandoned me 2 days before, and I was scheduled to leave. It wasn't like I panicked and tried to leave, right? And they were like, nope, we're not putting any planes to the Southern Caribbean, all are going north. We don't want to be anywhere near the storm. And I started to feel very helpless. I survived. I, in some ways, barely survived that Category 5. And I made a promise to myself that anytime I'm traveling to those islands, I have to be able to get off, right? And that's what led me a few years later to getting my PPL.
Either by air or by sea, I'm getting off this damn thing.
Yeah, and the thing is, right, I had never done island to island traveling via boat before that time. I had no need to, never did. Did it the first time, it wasn't as bad. I said, you know what? Yes, the water between Barbados and the other islands in the Eastern Caribbean, pretty rough because Barbados is out there on its own in the Atlantic over there. So I'm like, okay, it's rough, but on a good day, I won't die. in a raft. It will be very uncomfortable, but I won't die. So I said, you know what? Worst case scenario, let me know how to use a raft and I can survive, and then I may need to wait a good few hours, in some cases probably 4 or 5, so I just need to make sure I have something covering me so I don't get too dehydrated or sunburned. And it might be just a vacation, I don't know. I don't know.
755 Mike, enter the right now on runway 7. I'll call your base turn.
Right down 1 for runway 755 Mike. Tower, good morning, 82 Bravo on sequence.
82 Bravo, ready tower, roger. Whiskey, say parking.
Nope.
423 Whiskey, turn left in front of the tower, then a left turn on Delta, Delta to the ramp, ground plane 8 when you come back out.
That's always interesting. Landing in a new airport for me is usually not a comfortable experience. Sometimes it goes really well. Most times it goes kind of like it just did today, until I get used to the airport and familiar with all the landmarks and that sort of thing. But this is what it's about. As long as we landed safely, free of injuries, and
I'm good.
I think the plane can fly again. Jeremy's good.
I'm
good. We made it.